Welcome to Drunk Bible Study. This show's mission is to read every single word of the greatest story ever told. A warning to our listeners, the hosts of this show are sinners, but they're doing their best. There will be drinking and there may be some swears. They did say they'd try to keep it clean, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Hi everyone and welcome to Drunk Bible Study. This is where my great friends Jace and Dedeker, two former Christian people, tell me, total atheist person, about the Bible and read it to me. It's time for story time.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited to get this started. This is a big project that we've taken on. I was doing the math here. This is going to take us several years to get through the entire Bible. But I'm excited, and I'm not afraid.
You're not afraid?
I'm not afraid.
You know who you married?
That makes one of us.
I was thinking more
Jesus?
like, be not afraid.
Oh, okay, that's good.
That kind of a...
I will have to say, I am excited because, I mean, even in my Christian years, I didn't read the Bible cover to cover. Not a lot of the Christians around me read the Bible cover to cover.
I know very few people who've read the entire Bible cover to cover.
And every time I come back to the Bible as an adult, it's a whole new perspective compared to my childhood. So by the time we get to the end of this, who knows? Maybe I'll be a Christian again. I don't know.
Who knows?
Anything could happen between now and several years from now.
Well, can I ask, you two were born in the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a way of saying it? And what does that mean exactly? Like, where have you come from? What is your backstory regarding Christianity and the Bible?
Sure. So I'll start with that one. So I was raised in a Christian family. Like a lot of my cousins were missionaries, all Protestant missionaries. My grandparents on both my mom's and dad's side were both missionaries at different times. So that was very much like in my family. My parents met at Wheaton College, like at a super conservative Christian college in the Midwest. And so I was raised in that, but we moved around a lot. We traveled a lot when I was a kid because my dad was, getting his PhD and then his postdoctorate and then his professorship. And then my parents got divorced and we moved different places. So we moved around a lot. So I didn't really grow up in just one denomination, but instead, we would be Presbyterian when we were in this town. And then we were like a non-denominational Christian in this town. And then we were Methodist when we were here. And then we're going to a Lutheran church here. And then
you have to sample many different flavors.
Different flavors of Protestantism, yeah. And like I worked for a while at the choir at a Lutheran church, and I was in the band at a Presbyterian church. And so, did all sorts of different things, kind of fell out of it. And then in high school, went to a Jesus camp kind of thing with my friends and like got very heavily back into it. Wanted to be a pastor, like thought that was potentially a career path for me. Gradually became more and more liberal, though, through that time, like still very Christian, but more liberal up into eventually a point where I kind of let go of Christianity altogether.
You were a cool Christian.
Well, I was a cool Christian, and now I'm not a Christian.
Or cool.
Or cool.
Aww.
I've stopped being both of those things.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
So I was raised in a Christian family. We started going to church regularly when I was about 6 or 7, I believe.
Oh, so you didn't right away?
Not right away, because, so my early childhood was, my mom's a single mom, raising me and my sister together. And so we all started going to church as just like this little group of ladies. When I was very young, we went to the local Nazarene church. And that's pretty much where we stayed for the next 10 years
I feel like that made yours so different
from mine. It's very different because, I definitely had a consistency of experience of being specifically Nazarene, which is also evangelical Protestant faith. Things did change, though, when my mom remarried when I was about 12 or so, when she married a man that she'd met in church who was really hardcore fundamentalist Christian. And I think our faith up to that point had been like, I don't know, again, like a little bit liberal, a little bit casual, you know. I mean, I was going to Christian school as well. But then definitely once that relationship started, it got a lot more intense. So as in I suddenly had to start wearing a dress to church.
Okay.
My parents were going to church like 3 times a week and to prayer meetings, and like I was made to go to youth group. It was like suddenly our participation in church really skyrocketed.
Right.
And I don't know, the timing of that with also the beginning of puberty was not great timing, I think, that suddenly things at home got a lot more restrictive and more legalistic as I was starting to blossom into youth, as it were.
Blossom into womanhood,
as I was blossoming into my
Blossoming.
womanhood. As I kind of grew up and became a teenager, I started, I think, getting more and more disillusioned with church and church politics. And then at the age of 16 or 17, I read the Poisonwood Bible, which is a fantastic book by Barbara Kingsolver. But it was like one of the first secular books that I read that kind of calls into question, like, hey, maybe like compulsory missionary work is not the most ethical thing to do. And I was like, that makes sense. And then honestly, like I moved out of the house shortly after that at 17 to go to college, and I was just kind of done. It wasn't like a big renunciation or a big rebellion or even like a slow gradual. It was just kind of like, I think I'm just like kind of done with this. So
Wow.
I know.
Is it like cheating on religion no, I mean, on like your specific type by going like bouncing back and forth between like Lutheran and
Cheating?
Nazarene and like all of these things. It's just funny to me that you're not like sticking with one.
Well,
you're just going to all the churches, trying on a little thing.
I think the first thing to specify is that for the most part, all of those Protestant denominations still consider each other Christians. That it's not like trying a different religion. It's like, I think you would have more of an issue, kind of like in the book Life of Pi, where he's like going to temple and he's going to the mosque and he's going to Catholic Mass. Then I think people
More
in those,
tension there.
yeah, that's like, whoa, you can't dip in all of those at once. Whereas with different
Or Catholicism.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Catholicism to
That's true,
Protestantism,
even that.
that could be a little weird.
Yeah.
But between Protestant denominations, there are definitely some who would view others as either too conservative or not really following God's word. But for the most part, that's why I said for the most part, still would consider each other Christians. That it's not like you could go to a friend's church who's a different denomination and you'll still know pretty much how it goes. Maybe there's a few little wordings that are different, but it's pretty much the same.
Right.
Would you agree with that
I would
assessment?
agree. Even growing up with a relatively consistent experience, like my parents, my mom and my stepdad, they had friends who were, went to a Pentecostal church. And so maybe occasionally, like once in a blue moon, we would go to the Pentecostal church where they were. And Pentecostals, they're very different, definitely very different stylistically,
Really?
but it's not a sense of like, oh, there's some kind of betrayal because you've decided to go to a Pentecostal service.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing that I do know, every time I would see my grandpa after I had moved out, like when I went to college and after college, his question would always be, first of all, have you found a church that you're going to? And then the second question would be, or maybe not even a question, but a concern is like, I hope that they're a church that's actually teaching the real word of God. As in,
What does that mean?
well, to him, what that meant was
Fundamentalism,
one that's a
or-
little more fundamentalist. I don't think he would have ever used that word, but the way I would describe it as more conservative, that you're not being too fast and loose with Jesus dying for your sins and what
And
you
gay
have to
people
do
are
to be
okay.
saved. Yeah, and that, exactly, stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
see.
That it's hoping I wasn't going to too liberally of a church. But again, that can vary even within a particular denomination. So, for example, like within the Methodist Church, you can have very liberal pastors and churches or fairly conservative ones. And there actually was a split within the Methodist Church quite a while back now over some of those theological disputes. But even within those, there's still a range from more conservative to more liberal. For example, in college, I went to an American Baptist church where the pastor were a husband and wife, and they had a daughter who was gay, and they conducted a sort of a ceremony for her and her long-term girlfriend, and very, very liberal church, even though it was a part of the Baptist umbrella.
Interesting.
They were American Baptist, not Southern Baptist. However, they were so far on that edge of it that toward the time I was graduating, they were actually in the middle of potentially being kicked out of the Baptist Union. So there was like some leeway within them, but also not in a way.
Well, Em, let's hear
Probably
from you.
your grandfather would not have been okay with that.
No, definitely
probably
not.
not.
Yeah.
But
So
yes.
tell us about you. Like, what role did
Dedeker,
religion-
you wanted to say something real quick.
No, I was just saying I want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So my grandmother was Christian Scientist, which is like not anything at all like the two of you.
Yeah, very different.
Or what you went through. The most that I know about Christian Science is that like you don't go to a doctor and you don't go to like psychiatrists because they're like witches and they're just doing it to like experiment on you. Something like that, I think, is what Christian Science believes.
You know more about it than I do,
You
I
probably
think.
know more than we do. But like the idea being that like if you're sick, it's more about your relationship with God rather than
Yes, like God will heal you.
Okay.
Right. But you said growing up, though, that your grandma believed this and your mom was raised this way, but then didn't do that?
Yeah, my mom was like, nah, like at a really young age. She said, we're not doing that. I mean, and I guess like her siblings, her sisters still went to church just to kind of like have their parents still be okay with the two of them or just kind of like for their goodwill or whatever. But my mom was like, no, I don't believe that. That's bullshit. I'm not going to do that. So she didn't do that. And pretty much when I was born, she was like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this stuff. So I'm not going to like have her believe in it either.
For being you,
so
you, her daughter.
Her being me, yes, and I also did not learn about that, but I know my grandmother kind of thought that it was important, and my grandmother lived with me pretty much from when I was like 6 years old, I think, to 17, so 11 years,
Right.
And wanted me to at least like hear some stories of the Bible, so like Noah and shit like that, mostly Noah. I don't know, maybe some other shit.
Noah.
We'll
That's
see.
all you got.
Maybe I'll
As we go through, you might recognize some
like
others.
Noah over and over.
Yeah.
No, I mean I'm assuming like maybe Moses and shit,
You probably heard some Moses in there.
I'm sure you heard some Moses, yeah.
and some Jesus.
Jesus.
But given the timeline of what's going on here, guys, we're not going to get to Jesus
Like
for a long
couple years. Like
long
this is
time.
Well, but it's important to have the buildup. It's important to like understand everything that happens before.
That is the longest buildup.
Yes, before
Yeah.
Jesus enters the stage. You know, yeah.
Right. So
Pursued by a bear. Yes.
Nice.
good one.
That's what Winter's Tale or 12th
Correct.
Night. It's Winter's Tale. Yeah.
Okay.
Winter's Tale.
Yes.
Yes.
Good job. All right. So let's talk quickly about the structure that we're going to do here. So we're doing a Bible study
Reading
thing,
plan. A reading plan.
A reading plan. This one, if you want to follow along, is from BibleStudyTools.com. And this particular Bible study plan is the chronological one. So we're not going to be going through the books in the order that they're in the Bible. We're actually going to be jumping around between books to tell the story in chronological order.
Like actual historical chronological order.
Right.
Well, and wait, you explained this to me very well, like Game of Thrones.
It would be like the way the Bible is right now, if you were to read it cover to cover, it would be like watching Game of Thrones, where the whole first season is like just Jon Snow's story all the way to the end. And then like the second season is all just Daenerys' story all the way to the end. And then the next one is all like, you know, maybe the story of the Starks all the way to the end. And then instead, the way we're doing it chronologically is more like Game of Thrones is, where you're jumping around between the different stories to
as the timeline progresses.
as the timeline
forward.
goes on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which I'm really excited to do, because I know studying this as a kid, I never had a sense of like when certain things were happening relative to other things in the Bible, because you would so often get just like a lesson or a story about a section of the Bible, or, you know, from a little section of the Bible with no real context of like, where does this fit in with the rest of it? You know? So I'm actually really excited to read it in this way.
Can I give our disclaimer and then be done with it?
Sure.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
Just our disclaimer that we're here just to have some fun. You know, none of us identify as Christian, although we have a history with the faith. both positively and negatively. The faith itself has provided a lot to a lot of people across the world. So we're not here to make a commentary on religion specifically.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I was going to add that too.
We're not here to lambaste or to mock or anything like that. We are here just to have fun, to educate ourselves, to get a sense of like what really is in this book that has affected so much of the world and so much of our own culture. And that's why we're drinking at the same time, because we're here to have fun. And we hope that you have fun too.
Yeah. So I think my hope is that we can approach this as if we were approaching a podcast about reading Game of Thrones or The Lord of the Rings or some other sort of
I would definitely want to be drunk for that.
epic story, right? Where we can look at this as a book, right? The Bible is often referred to as the greatest story ever told. And I want to see, like, is that the case? Like, what is the...
Do all the reviews hold true?
We will find out.
They say it's the greatest story ever told, but so few people have actually read the whole story.
True. That's true.
Much fewer than have read The Lord of the Rings, I would bet.
Really?
I don't know.
Over the course of all of history, maybe not.
Okay, maybe not over all of history, but I would say...
Lord of the Rings only has like 50 years.
But I would say since Lord of the Rings came out, I don't know. I've read all of the Lord of the Rings, but I haven't read all of the Bible.
Yeah, okay.
And I feel like I'm somewhat
You considered
representative.
yourself Christian.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the structure for this. We're not shitting on religion. This is just for fun, but I do want to look at this like it's a book and kind of talk about it as if it were a book. So in doing that, it's like you would talk about Game of Thrones while you're reading it. You're existing within the fiction of Game of Thrones, right? Like when you talk about the gods or dragons, it's just like they are real. That's the situation that these people live in. And I think it would help us to talk about the Bible in a similar way.
Right.
Of just like, we're going to talk about the Bible from the point of view of the people writing the Bible and the people in the Bible.
As opposed to reading Game of Thrones and having a big debate about whether dragons actually exist or not.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That we're not going to debate about like whether God exists or not or what this is, but instead just look at the story itself and the characters itself.
So I'm so excited. Really, the two of you know a lot about this already, and I truly don't. I know the Noah story. I know the Jesus.
We know at least that.
Yes, and Jesus like is talked about 4 different times in 4 different books or something.
A lot more than that.
I don't know.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, and Moses parted some Red Seas, and Pharaohs went after Jews, and that's about it. But maybe
nailed
like
it.
that.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, so yeah, all of those things happen, but I'm really excited because if we're looking at this as a story, then I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be an epic one, and the fact that you two haven't even read the whole thing, we're all going to learn something here. So this is our episode 0, and we can't wait for you to go on to the first episode where we're going to talk about the book of Genesis.
Yeah, the beginning of everything.
Where it all began.
Yeah.
Find us on Twitter at Drunk Bible Cast, on Instagram at Drunk Bible Study, or send us an email at info@drunkbiblestudy.com. Drunk Bible Study is created and produced by Dedeker Winston, Jace Lindgren, and me, Emily Matlack. Our theme song is Book Club by Josh and Anand from their album Home of the. For more information, visit us at drunkbiblestudy.com.